everyone, welcome to my channel. I've not been around for a while, so this is my first booktube video in a while. I'm really looking forward to sharing about some of these books with you guys, but it's great to be back, and I've read so many great books recently that I'm so excited about children's books at the moment. Unfortunately, the first book that I want to talk about I didn't really get on with very well. It's called The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, and this is about a robot called Roz who she wakes up on an island after her delivery ship shipwrecks, and she's the only robot who survived. She goes into the wild and she meets lots of animals and she learns their language. It began well, I think, that part where she's just exploring the island and getting to know herself and her environment. I think that bit was probably one of the best bits of the book for me. It really kind of showed her character more and the world building there, and how a robot learns language was really interesting. But when the animals came into things, that's where my problems kind of piled up from there. So the animals they're supposed to be teaching Roz how to be wild. And this whole idea of wildness throughout the book is very much cemented, I think, in the author's misunderstanding of what it means to be wild. The animals themselves are very anthropomorphized. They're basically in this community and behave exactly like humans. They break their own kind of natural instincts, and they show Roz how to live wildly by building a house that is basically the same as a human's house, even designing a garden and rolling out turf. They teach her how to build fire, and it's like, where did the animals learn this stuff, and why is it all very human? And it just got worse and worse and worse the more it went on, and especially when parenting came into this. So Roz adopts an orphaned goose, and it just becomes so very patronising, and just I think this would have been fine if the book had been marketed for the 5 to 8s and had like full colour illustrations and was like half the size. But from middle grade, this book is so very patronising. The language is very simple and dumbed down. There's direct address all the way through, spelling out things that are very, very obvious. And it's got a very plodding and unchallenging plot with just things happening but no real depth to them. The only depth that's explored is whole parenting identity themes, but it's so patronisingly done and kind of just sickly that I just couldn't get on board with it at all. A comment in the author's note really kind of cemented what was wrong with this book for me and just clarified it all, and I'll read it to you because it bothers me a lot. It says, "Animals have such predictable behaviour and follow such rigid routines that at times they almost feel robotic. And somewhere along the line it occurred to me that animal instincts are a kind of like computer programs." And like, no, just no. Like, I don't know how this guy has managed to be in nature or have pets without realising that animals are nothing like computer programs, and they are not predictable like that. They have personalities and differences, and they are so unique in themselves, as well as having these kind of instinctual patterns, which I think is what he's getting at with that computer program thing. But they are so individual. This opinion of animals being like computer programs is just evident all the way through the book, but at the same time his idea of wildness is so very weird as well, because he doesn't really understand what being wild means in that way if he thinks of animals being like computer programs. There were just so many conflicting ideas in this book. It just didn't work at all for me. So yeah, and also it was just really boring. So that's my rant on that one. The next book that I want to talk about is Sky Song by Abi Elphinstone, and this is the first book of hers that I've read. Beautiful cover, look at that, it's just gorgeous. This is a beautiful little kind of fairy tale sort of story about 3 kids who live on a icy island in the middle of nowhere that's taken over by an evil ice queen. And it's got kind of like Narnia vibes and the Snow Queen obviously, but also there's so many other little things in there that are really quite cute and magical. It's full of friendship and emotional challenges and adventure, One of the main characters has Down syndrome, and that was really great to see. I gave this book 4 stars in the end, but the only thing that dropped this book down for me was that the plot didn't feel very challenging. The Ice Queen herself was quite a terrifying character, but she didn't really feel fleshed out for me. There was no real reason to what she wanted to do. It was just kind of like, she's evil and that's it. So I would have liked to have seen more depth to her character, but the depth of the other characters, Flint's from a tribe whose parents have all been frozen by the Ice Queen, including his own, and there's a lot of expectation on him to join in the fight, but he wants to find another way. And it was really interesting seeing his kind of emotional conflict about what he should do and what his expectations are. And Eska, she doesn't know who she is. She has memory loss, she has no idea where she fits, what tribe she belongs to, and she meets Flint by chance. And their journey together is so magical and wonderful, and it's got this lovely fairy tale-ness to it. I think this is a really great book for middle grade. The next one I read is a graphic novel, and that's called The Nameless City by Erin Hicks, and this is a middle grade graphic novel, and it's the first in a trilogy, and it's very beautiful. The art style of this book, I think, is quite a lot like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I think, yeah, this guy here who's endorsed this book, he's one of the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender, so it's got a lot of those kind of themes, especially the Asian inspired stuff. And the history of this world is very gently fed in. The Nameless City is called that because actually it has too many names. It's been invaded so many times. Everybody who lives there calls it by a different name. This is a boy who's come to the city to train with the army who are currently occupying the city, and this is a girl who, I think she's one of the natives, or at least way back in time settlers. And she lives on the streets, and they run into each other because she is very fast and he wants to be as fast as she is. So they kind of train each other and become friends, and there's a whole plot to take down the government and all this kind of stuff, which is great fun in children's books. But it's also so beautifully drawn, and the emotions on the characters are very clear, their facial expressions are brilliant, and it's just a great start to the trilogy, and I can't wait to get hold of the next 2 books. They're a bit expensive in the UK, but it's a fantastic trilogy and it's quite thick. You get a lot for your money. The next book that I read is probably one of my favourite books of the year, and that is Nevermoor, The Trials of Morrigan Crowe by Jessica Townsend. And this book was brilliant. This book felt like reading Harry Potter for the first time. It was the same emotion, it was the same wonder and just like complete absorption into the world. I was so invested in this book by like chapter 1, it was ridiculous. It's so expertly written and playful and immersive and imaginative. Like, there is a lot of people have been comparing this to Harry Potter, but for me actually it was the emotion of reading it that made it most like Harry Potter. This is about Morrigan Crowe, who is about to turn 11 years old, and she's not looking forward to it because she's destined to die on her 11th birthday because she is a cursed child, and all of her life she's been blamed for every single like thing that could be considered unlucky that happens around her and in the town where she lives. So she's very used to being blamed for everything and being everybody's scapegoat and having to apologise for everything. She's immediately a character you can sympathise with purely because of that. But also she's just very funny. She's very optimistic despite all these bad things that happen and all the blame she gets put on. But what happens on her 11th birthday is she gets rescued by a guy who, to me, seems like a mix between the 10th Doctor, Willy Wonka, and Hagrid, but ginger, and like looks, well, according to this, looks like an Irish leprechaun, but I don't imagine him like that at all. He's not supposed to be colour coordinated whatsoever. Has a very unique dress style, does Jupiter, and it's not and he takes her to this magical realm that is definitely nothing like the wizarding world. It's very kind of modern and unique and absolutely completely crazy and weird and wonderful. They've got like a transport system that involves umbrellas, and there's a hotel that can change its appearance at will when it's moody, and it's just, this is so imaginative and the characters are brilliant. And at the centre of the story is the entrance trial to the mysterious Wanderers Society, which I think is supposed to be like a kind of magical school, but it's definitely nothing like Hogwarts. It's only a certain amount of kids get accepted each year. You have to do certain trials to get even accepted, and you only have, I think there's only 9 of them ever accepted each year. But it's very mysterious. It's very, I've no idea what to expect from it at all. And even trials, you can't really predict them either. It's so much fun. It's so good. Oh, I can't do anything but ramble about this book. It's just so good. But basically, everything you could want is in this book. It's just, if you loved Harry Potter, don't be afraid by the whole Harry Potter comparisons thing, because this is clearly written by somebody who has been inspired by every book they've ever read and has written something completely unique and brilliant all of its own. I would say the comparisons, they're things that pay homage. They are completely fit within the world that Jessica Townsend has created, and it's just a brilliant debut, and I cannot wait. I've already pre-ordered it. Book 2 is coming out, I think it's either August or October, I can't remember, but I'm so excited for it and I can't wait to see where this goes. The last book that I read I don't have a copy of because I got sent it by NetGalley, and that is The Company of 8 by Harriet Whitehorn. I requested it because I am circus mad. I love circuses. My own novel is about a circus and I go to see circuses every summer. I love circuses so much. They're like totally my thing. So I was really excited to see more circus books being published, and especially one for middle grade. They tend to be more of a YA thing at the moment, so it's great to see one for middle grade. This story is about a girl called Cass, who's a teenage acrobat living with a caretaker. And she lives on an island in a world that seems to be made of islands, and she's been practicing for a long time to audition for a circus boat that is coming by her town very soon. Unfortunately she misses the audition, so she decides instead she will go to the Island of Women where her mother came from, and the whole concept of the Island of Women is just fantastic. I love that. And she hopes to re-audition for the circus next year. However, she kind of gets herself into a lot of trouble on the way, and she runs into, I think it's like the Archduke's son and loads of people. But this book, I only gave it 2.5 stars because I felt it put a lot more focus on its weak plot and than its characters or world building. The world, there's subtle suggestions that there's magic and all these kind of things, and there's a little subtle bits of history. A lot of the street names and place names all kind of hint at magic, but we never actually see anything. Cass herself, she's immune to magic, but we never really learn what that means for her, or it's never really relevant to the plot. So everything just kind of felt underdeveloped and quite weak. The plot was very action heavy, there was a lot happening, but it was a lot of things happening to Cass rather than Cass making active decisions that kind of then led her in certain directions. And despite there being so much in it and so much going on, the whole time it just felt very shallow and I wasn't engaged and I didn't care about the characters, and I really wanted to. The boys that she meets also just very kind of stereotypical and just really annoying. There was nothing really to like about either of them. And there was a lot of big issues that came up, specifically slavery, trauma and killing, and what killing does to a person that were just kind of glossed over. And there was the suggestion of massive impact, but it just wasn't enough. I think when you gloss over something like slavery and the effect that has on people and historically and what it means for the culture of your world, then that's really not a good thing ethically. Also, like, for a book that's supposed to be about the circus, you really don't see the circus very much, and that is always really disappointing to me because that tends to happen in a lot of circus books that I read, where the whole kind of like the cover is all circusy and the blurb's all about the circus, but like the actual book is not really about the circus at all. So that was disappointing for me, as the circus was my main draw for reading the book in the first place. I don't know, it just felt a bit messy and like it needed longer in the editing process, I think. It's just a bit of a shame. I don't like books that have potential because it feels kind of too late at that point. But yeah, so those are the first 5 books that I wanted to talk about in my children's reading kind of wrap-ups from the year, I guess. I've got another video to film about the next 5 books that I read. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, especially if you disagreed with me, because I love hearing other people's thoughts on them. But also if you do agree with me, then I'd love to hear your thoughts anyway. And yeah, it's great to be back. So thank you for watching and goodbye.